Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Imayori Septiana from 12 IPA 3. Today I will be explaining types of conditional sentence for English enrichment task. Conditional sentence consists of two clauses, if clause and result clause. If clause is a dependent clause, which is a clause that cannot stand on its own, so it is dependent to another clause. Result clause is an independent clause, which is a clause that can stand on its own and doesn't need another clause to complete it. Look at the example here. If it is sunny tomorrow, I will wear a hat. So the if clause here is the blue one and the result clause is the green one. Look at the example here. There is a comma in between the clauses. The comma here is used if the if clause is at the beginning of the sentence and followed by result clause. But if you put the result clause at the beginning of the sentence, you don't need to use the comma. Look at the example number 2. We do not see comma there because the result clause is at the beginning of the sentence. Next, I will be explaining the types of conditional. The first one is zero conditional. The usage is for general facts or habitual actions and giving instruction. For the first usage, you can see at the example number 1, if you boil water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. So this is a general fact, right? If you boil water to 100 degrees Celsius, it surely must boils, right? So it is a general fact. The structure for this conditional sentence is if plus subject plus verb 1 for the if clause and subject plus verb 1 for the result clause. So for the if clause here, the subject is you and the verb 1 is boil, and the same as the result clause, the subject is it and the verb 1 is boils. For the second usage, which is giving instruction, you can see at the second sentence here, if you get home last, lock the front door. So the giving instruction here is at the result clause. The sentence lock the front door here is giving instruction to the person who got home last to lock the front door. The structure for this sentence is the same as the first example because it is same because they are same. It is also the zero conditional type. The difference between these sentences is only the usage, so the structure remains the same. Second, we have the first conditional. For the first usage, first conditional is used for something possible to happen at the present time or in the future. If you look at the example here, if it is raining tomorrow, I will stay at home. So raining tomorrow will be raining. It's possible to happen, right? It is possible to happen in the future. So that's why the sentence is a first conditional, because raining tomorrow can happen in the future. It is possible to happen in the future. So the first conditional here, the first conditional is sometimes called the future conditional. And if you look at the second sentences, it is the same. The difference between the first sentence and the second sentence is only the will and the modals. So the structure for first conditional is if plus subject plus verb 1 for the if clause, the green one, and for the result clause is the red one. The structure is subject plus will plus verb 1. For the result clause, the will can be replaced with modals, with any kinds of models: should, would, may, might, etc. So you can change it into models too. You don't always have to use will. Next, we have first conditional. The second usage is for possible future plan. If you can see the example here, if she arrives before 7, we are going to jog in the beach. So in this sentence, the future plan is going to jog in the beach. Okay, so this is called the first conditional because going to jog in the beach is a possible future plan, right? So the structure for this is the same from before. It's the difference between this and the previous sentence is only the usage. Next, we have second conditional. So this types of conditional is used for something imaginary that will not likely or impossible to happen now or in the future. Look at the example here. If I were a bird, I would fly to Bali. So as you can see from the meaning of the sentence, if I were a bird, it's not impossible for us to be a bird, right? So it is impossible to happen. That is why the sentence is called the second conditional, because it is impossible to happen now or in the future, right? We cannot be a bird now, or in the future we cannot be a bird too, right? So the sentence here, if I were a bird, I would fly to Bali. The if clause is at the beginning of the sentence. That's why it used comma here. And the structure here for the if clause is if plus subject plus verb 2, and the result clause is subject plus would plus verb 1. And here, as you can see, for the if clause, the be form here is always were. So for the second conditional, the be form is always were, because second conditional here, it is something imaginary. It is something that is impossible to happen. So we always have to use were for the form of the be. Next, we have third conditional. Third conditional here is used for something imaginary in the past that will never happen. This third conditional is used to express reproach and regret. If you look at the example here, if I had woken up earlier, I would have been on time. If you can see, if we can conclude from this sentence that this person, the I here, the person, did not wake up earlier, and the person was late. It is that was the reality. The reality is the person here did not wake up earlier, and the person here was late. So it is this only an expression of regret. If I had woken up earlier, I would have been on time. It is something that will never happen, right? Because it already happened in the past and you cannot change it. That is why it is called the third conditional. So the structure for the third conditional here for the if clause is if plus subject plus had plus verb 3. The subject here is I plus had plus verb 3. The verb 3 here is woken up. Woken is the verb 3 of wake. And the result clause here, the subject is I plus would plus have plus verb 3. So the verb 3 for the result clause is the been. Been is the verb 3 of be. Next, we move on to exercise. For the question number 1, Lana blah 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 her novel if she had not gotten that accident. So the answer for this question is D. Why? I will explain why the answer is D. The answer is D because the use of if here and had not gotten shows that the sentence here is a third conditional sentence, which have the pattern or the structure if plus subject plus had not, because this sentence the sentence is a negative sentence, plus verb 3, and for the result, subject plus would have plus verb 3. So as you can see here from the answers, the verb used here is finish. But since it is the third conditional, the verb must used in the form of the past participle or the verb 3. So the verb 3 of finish is finished with ed. So the right answer would be D, would have finished. We move on to question number 2. If I blah 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 you, I would sign the contract. So the answer for this question is were. Let me explain why the answer is were. The use of if and would shows that the sentence here uses the second conditional. And the sentence is considered imaginations because it is used to imagine an impossible situation or an unlikely in reality. If you can see here, if I were you, that is something that is impossible to happen, right? I cannot be you. We cannot be someone else, right? It is impossible to happen. So that's why in this sentence we use the second conditional. And so all the subjects use were form of to be jadi. So we use were here as I explained before. in the second conditional, we must use were in the form, we must use form, the form to be were, because it is something imaginary, something that is impossible to happen. So the answer is C. We move on to question number 3. Why did you get a bad mark in English? If I blah 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 that there was a test, I would blah 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 it well. If you can see from the answer here, the first verb for the blank is know, and the second verb is prepare. And the answer for this questions is D. Why? I will explain it. The words there was a test, this conclude that the test happened in the past. And what Josh said here, it is a form of imagination or regret, because the test is already happened and he cannot repeat that test anymore. So what Josh said is a form of imagination, because what is said in the present is not the same with what happened in the past. So the sentence must use the third conditional because it expresses regret here. So the structure for this for the third conditional here is if plus subject plus had plus verb 3. So for the first blank, we know that we must use had. So the answer cannot be A or E, and we must use the verb 3. So the verb 3 of know is known. Okay, so the answer is between B, C, or D. And for the result clause, the structure is S or subject plus would plus have plus verb 3. So we know that the would is already in the sentence. I would blah blah blah. So we just need to add have plus verb 3 of the plus verb 3. So the verb 3 of prepare is prepared with D. So the answer will be D. This is another questions that I already made. Okay, thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope this presentation can give more understanding about the conditional sentences. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.